I say it every week here on the ESPN College Football YouTube channel alongside Paul Finebaum. I'm at Barrie. I don't know how we've embarked on 2 weeks before Thanksgiving. I don't even know how we've gotten to the point where we're going to talk about conference championship matchups already. But here we are. Paul, happy Sunday. Happy recap Sunday. First off, let's just start with what I believe is the most undiscussed story in college football and the job Brian Kelly has done year one at LSU.
Yeah, I mean, I think if Sonny Dykes wasn't probably the favorite to win National Coach of the Year, Brian Kelly would certainly be in the conversation. And I mean, I was just sitting there yesterday, and the idea that after the Alabama game that LSU has clinched a ticket to Atlanta. It really, I mean, we all know this was going on, Matt, but it did strike home that he did it. And yeah, I only, but primarily because I had a good friend who I worked with. There was a Notre Dame guy who was, just taking so many shots at Brian Kelly, and every time I would say something, moderately positive, I mean, I just felt poison arrows going through me, and that's the funniest part. And another thing about this is Scott Woodward, who has been able to make people forget that he hired Jimbo Fisher at Texas A&M by hiring Brian Kelly, and he also wanted to bring Jimbo to LSU. But nobody's going to criticize Scott Woodward, who has hit the home run of all home runs by bringing Brian Kelly to the Bayou.
Oh, don't you worry. We'll get into Jimbo and Texas A&M and I was sitting there at some point on set yesterday. I don't remember if it was during college football final or one of the half times, whatever we were doing. And Paul, I had to take pause for a minute because going into the season, I think everyone would have penciled in Georgia out of the SEC East as the team that would punch their ticket first to the SEC championship. And I'm sitting there on set and I'm going, no, wait a second. Can you guys believe that it was LSU? It was LSU who lost to Florida State. I know it's at a conference, who got pummeled to Tennessee. That Jaden and everybody looked lost in the first month of the season. It was the LSU Tigers who were in complete rebuild mode after how Ed O left that were the first team on the SEC championship t-shirt. That's just, to me, I don't know why it's so stunning to me in the Conference of Alabama, who, by the way, brought the greatest team back in the Nick Saban era. Paul, wasn't them. It was LSU.
And I know nationally, LSU won't get much credit for winning that game, but still allowing Razorbacks to win the spread by half a point. But that was always going to be a difficult, almost impossible win. And forget the conditions that were ridiculously cold around the South yesterday. But I mean it took a monster performance from a player that most people had never heard of before, Harold Perkins, to really wrap that up. But that was a really big win. And now they go to Texas A&M, and I know I'll put a pause on that at the end of the season. If they win, they win. They probably will win because the two of us could probably lead LSU to a win on that Saturday. But they're in Atlanta, and they I mean, here let's hit the cliche meter that they probably, for all intents and purposes, control their own destiny to get to the playoff.
Yeah, it really is something else what Brian Kelly's been able to do there in Baton Rouge. They won the national championship in 2019, one of the most talented teams we've ever seen in college football. Things started to go this way. The Brian Kelly news gave us the what? Brian Kelly from South Bend? And now, I mean, family, the infamous quote in the offseason seems like yesteryear because of how he's been able to succeed. I will give you an aside on Harold Perkins before we move on to the next topic. We're sitting there, and this was early on in the game yesterday, and he was making a couple plays, and Dan Mullen just kept popping out of his chair. He's like, that was that kid right there, one of the best high school linebacker films I've ever seen. And he was going on and on about this kid, and it's almost like you were waiting for that star and that something to pop, and that just goes to show. We've long said this, this being a fixture in the SEC, the right coach at LSU can get just as good a talent as they can at Alabama. And how long have you and I said this? You make the right move at LSU, they're the ones you talk about year in and year out in the SEC West, along with Nick Saban in Alabama.
Yeah, and Nick Saban started it, and it's an age-old question: what would have happened if Nick Saban had never left to go to the Miami Dolphins? It's possible he'd have 8 or 9 national championships, and we're not exaggerating. I mean, that may be on the conservative side. That's how easy it is with the right coach to bring in talent down there. And I'll tell you a quick story. I was with Tebow 3 weeks ago, and they were playing, the LSU fight song, and Tebow told me, he said, I don't know how they ever lose a player, and he said there's so many things about that place that are. It's like going into a different world, and I know every college thinks it's unique, but LSU has something that almost nobody else does.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN Plus.